Bears fans, we got a busy show coming up in just a few moments, but if you want to continue to stay up to date with this football team with off-season videos every single day, go ahead and subscribe. The link is right there, youtube.com/Bears. Now, I will continue to bring you the latest Bears news and rumors. And with that being said, Robert Quinn trade rumors are heating up. Let's break it down on today's show. Welcome into Bears Now by Chat Sports. I'm Harrison Graham. On today's show, we're going to break down the latest Robert Quinn trade rumors while also getting you some trade ideas and potential destinations for Robert Quinn if he were to get traded. So we'll get into all of that. But let's kind of catch you guys up on where we sit as of now here. Ahead of day 2 of minicamp, which is actually going on right now. Skipping mandatory minicamp, as we found out on Tuesday, and we kind of speculated maybe the Bears are letting him stay away, but it was very clear when Matt Eberflus had his press conference after the first practice that this is not an excused absence for Quinn. They expected him to be here, and he went as far as saying Ryan Poles will handle that situation. And obviously, with all that going on, the trade rumors are picking back up into another gear with all this speculation. Now, obviously, Robert Quinn is coming off a fantastic year in which he had 18.5 sacks, one of the best years of his career, kind of out of nowhere in a sense, considering he was not good in 2020. But Robert Quinn had that great year last year, new regime, new GM, new coaching staff, going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. I think now we have to take these Robert Quinn trade rumors seriously. A trade feels possible at this point in time. He's not been out there. He wasn't there for OTAs. He's not at mandatory minicamp. Now, sure, he's a vet. Maybe he'll just show up at training camp and that's that. But it's also possible that he wants out and he wants to get traded. Maybe that the Bears want to trade him as well, and maybe that is the best scenario for everyone involved. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days at minicamp and obviously over the next few weeks between now and training camp. But I think trading Robert Quinn at least has to be viewed as a decent possibility. Now, I want to ask you, guess it for me. I'm not saying what would you do. I'm saying what do you think will happen? Will Robert Quinn get traded, let's say before week 1? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. Get your votes in. Curious to see where Bears fans fall on this one. Y for yes or in for no. All right, so that's kind of the latest. Not at minicamp, wasn't at OTAs. Trade rumors are back. So let's now shift into some trade ideas and destinations. I got 5 teams that I think could make sense for Quinn and 5 different trade ideas coming up here on Bears Now. We'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think out of every contending team in the NFL need a pass rusher more than anybody. Their edge rushers are just not that great, if we're being completely honest. I think they need to add a piece there. I mean, they've got Frank Clark, who's okay, but he's been declining. George Karlaftis is a rookie out of Purdue. They got some decent depth guys in Michael Dana. Maybe Joshua Kando gives them a little something this year. But in reality, they don't have much coming off the edge at all. Maybe Chris Jones will play a little defensive end again this year like he did last year, but even then, you're still pretty thin at that spot. Chiefs still trying to chase Super Bowls. I think they could benefit from a guy like Robert Quinn. So here's a trade idea between the Bears and the Chiefs. Mecole Hardman and a third-round pick coming to Chicago for Robert Quinn straight up. Remember, Ryan Poles coming over from the Chiefs organization, knows that front office, knows Mecole Hardman well. We've talked about how the Bears could add another weapon. I think Hardman's a solid kind of number 2, number 3 type of receiver, could give you more speed on this offense. What do you guys think? Do you like this trade idea? If you do, like this video. If you don't, just type don't in the comments and let me know why you don't like this trade. Next up on our Quinn trade destinations video, Dallas Cowboys, who have been rumored to being interested in Robert Quinn. Not sure if there's any tangible evidence to that other than people connecting dots, and one of those dots obviously being that Quinn played last with the Cowboys before signing that deal with Chicago in 2020, 2019 with Dallas, and it's kind of crazy how things change quickly. They traded for him for a 6th-round pick. Obviously, his value is stronger than that now, but then he had that good year with Dallas, 11.5 sacks in 2019. That's what caused him to get that 5-year, $70 million contract from Ryan Pace and the Chicago Bears, which looked like a disaster in 2020 because he was hurt and was not productive, but then this past year, of course, has the great season season, but Dallas, a team who's trying to contend, coming off a 12-win season, could use another pass rusher, and obviously Robert Quinn is familiar with that organization. So here's a trade idea between the Bears and Dallas. Connor McGovern, who was I think a third-round pick a couple years ago, guard, center flexibility, I think mostly a guard at this point, and a second-round pick for Robert Quinn. McGovern's not going to start for Dallas. Listen, a couple of these trade ideas will feature second-round picks. I'll be very blunt. If you can get a second, even if it's just the pick for Robert Quinn, I think you do it at this point. But I threw McGovern in there as well because he's not even going to start for the Cowboys anyway. And Robert Quinn would obviously give that defense a boost. So you get an offensive lineman who could compete at right guard. Not saying he would for sure start, but I think he'd be better than Sam Mustipher along with that 2023 second-round pick. All right, before we continue with some more trade ideas, if you're watching on Bears Now, you've probably heard about the Callin app for a while now. If you're watching on Chat Sports, as we're posting this video over there as well, follow Bears Now on the Callin app. The link is below, chatsports.com/BearsCallin. Audio social podcasting app, very similar to Twitter Spaces, but it's got a couple of extra cool features, including a live chat. I go live over there every Tuesday after my Bears Now YouTube stream, so usually around 4 o'clock Central Time. Your chance to call in to me directly through the Callin app and, chop up some Bears football, some NFL topics as well. Subscribe, chatsports.com/BearsCallin. If you're watching on a Fire Stick or a TV, here's a QR code that you can scan on your phone. That'll redirect you to Callin. You'll be able to download the app. Also have a download link in the comments and in the description for iOS and Android, depending on what your smartphone is. Chatsports.com/BearsCallin to subscribe, and then check those links in the description to download the app on your phone. Okay, next team here, Baltimore Ravens, who have been trying to beef up that pass rush all offseason. Remember, Za'Darius Smith verbally agreed there. That deal fell through. They recently brought in Jason Pierre-Paul for a visit as well. So they've clearly been trying to add another body to that defensive line. Well, Robert Quinn would be much better than a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul, who kind of fell off a cliff last year, as Baltimore clearly is looking to add more off the edge, especially after that Smith deal fell through earlier in free agency. Another little incentive, obviously Robert Quinn has played in different schemes, but he just had 18.5 sacks in a 3-4 scheme. Get him back in a 3-4 in Baltimore, which is what they run. That could make some sense as well. So I think these dots could be connected for Baltimore. Now, they're very calculated when they trade, so you may not get as much as you would want because they're a smart organization and they don't overpay. Trade idea number 3. So a third and a sixth to Chicago, because I think those would be later picks in the round, because I think the Ravens will be a good team this year. Also threw Ben Powers in there, rotation guard. He started some in the NFL. He's played okay. Again, I think he'd be an upgrade at right guard, maybe not a huge one, but I threw him in there as well. He's not going to start for the Ravens. For Robert Quinn, that's my trade idea between the Bears and Baltimore. Now, we've thrown in some receivers and offensive linemen in a couple of these trades, and obviously 2 positions that we've spent numerous hours talking about on this show that the Bears could upgrade at. So which position would you rather trade for in a Robert Quinn trade? Would you rather get an offensive lineman in the deal or a wide receiver? I would probably lean O-line, especially if you can get a guy who could start at guard, but curious to see where you guys weigh in down in the comments. All right, next up, the Arizona Cardinals, who are also trying to win. That's kind of a theme here, right? I don't think a non-contending team trading for 32-year-old Robert Quinn, who's got a lot of money left on his deal, really makes sense. Arizona had that great start last year, fell off, did not perform well in the second half of the season. But something we know about the Cardinals, at least over the past few years, they've been adding a lot of quality veterans to kind of blend in with their young talent and young quarterback in Kyler Murray. These are just some of the additions they've made in the last few years. J.J. Watt, DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green, Zach Ertz, Marcus Golden. I mean, they've valued these guys who have been around, have been with different teams, and have been able to win and produce as well. And I'll also add this, with J.J. Watt having a lot of injuries kind of pile up over the past couple of years, adding a guy like Robert Quinn, I think, makes sense. It gives you another body there that can produce at a high level, allows J.J. Watt to kick inside on passing downs as well. I think Quinn to Arizona is a sneaky possibility, in my opinion. Steve Keim's an aggressive GM, so keep an eye on that one as a potential dark horse team. So here's the trade idea with Arizona. Pretty simple. Andy Isabella in a second for Robert Quinn. Isabella kind of buried on their depth chart, speed demon out of UMass from a few years ago, can return punts and kicks. And I think you could utilize him on offense a little creative in some creative ways as well. So I think that could work out for both sides. All right, one more trade idea to come, but be sure to subscribe, not only to Bears Now, youtube.com/Bears Now, daily videos around the Chicago Bears, but also to Chat Sports. If you're watching on Chat Sports, hit that sub button. And for you Bears fans watching on Bears Now, go subscribe over there as well, youtube.com/ChatSportsTV. This channel would not be possible without our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. Help us out. Go subscribe. We're almost at 305,000 subs over there. All right, final trade destination for Robert Quinn, the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think there are a few bullet points that make sense for Robert Quinn to Vegas. Number one, they have been really aggressive this offseason because they're trying to keep up with the AFC West. The Chiefs are obviously going to continue to be a major contender. The Chargers made a lot of moves. Denver added Russell Wilson. You got to keep up if you're Las Vegas, which is what they've done this offseason. You go out and get Davante Adams. You get another elite pass rusher in Chandler Jones. Rock Ya-Sin, and you brought in Bears defensive lineman, defensive tackle, which I think is important to mention as well with Bilal Nichols coming over, because Champ Kelly, former Bears front office executive, is now the Raiders assistant GM. So you've got that connection as well. Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report here at Chat Sports, told me that the Raiders are trying to potentially add another defensive end to allow Chandler Jones play off ball a little bit at outside linebacker. So that can make sense. Robert Quinn could play opposite of Max Crosby in Vegas, and then Chandler Jones could play a little off ball as well, and you could kind of mix and match over there if you are the Raiders. They've been very aggressive with this new regime out in Vegas, so maybe, just maybe, they would be interested in Robert Quinn as well. So here's my trade idea for this one. Denzelle Good, who's played some tackle and guard in the NFL and has had a decent amount of success, is coming off an injury, though, at a 2023 third-round pick for Robert Quinn. You get a guy who can be like a number 6 offensive lineman, could maybe start at guard for you in Denzelle Good, and then a third-round pick along with Robert Quinn. I don't think the Raiders would do a second-round pick because they didn't have much draft capital last year with the Davante Adams trade, so keep that in mind. So there you go. Those are 5 trade ideas to get Robert Quinn out of Chicago. Again, not saying that they're just trying to get him out, but if Quinn wants out and if teams come calling and give you offers, then obviously you should consider that if you are the Bears. I asked you earlier what you think will happen. Now I'm asking you what you want to happen. Do you want the Bears to trade Robert Quinn now? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. Let us know down in the comments section. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bears Now. Obviously, minicamp is ongoing. If there's any major updates out of today's practice, we'll probably do another video later on. If not, we'll have you covered tomorrow as minicamp kind of wraps up. We'll also have some minicamp winners and losers later on as well, so be on the lookout. You can follow me on social media for more updates as well, at HGramNFL on Twitter, also on Instagram, same handle, both places. That's where you can find me. All right, appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you soon here on Bears Now.